Shalom, Bethel family. It's Thursday again, and time to review last week's Parsha, how we studied it in synagogue. Last week was Parshat Shemot. It was also very excitingly for me, and I think for the people who were in synagogue, our first use of our new Siddur Lev Shalem, the Siddur that's been around for almost a year now in our movement, and is such a wonderful tool and resource. And my drash, my talk on Saturday, related Shemot and Lev Shalem. So to start with, it is interesting that the Parsha is called Shemot in Hebrew. Of course, in English, it's called Exodus. The whole book is called Exodus, the second book of the Torah, which means, the going out. We kind of know what Exodus is, a grand sort of going out. And Shemot does not mean that. Right? Shemot means names. And this is one of these odd things about the namings of the books of the Torah. We see it again in Bamidbar, the fourth book of the Torah. Bamidbar means in the wilderness. We call it Numbers in English, I guess because it begins and ends with a census of the people. But they're very different senses of those words, what it means to be Bamidbar in the wilderness or Numbers. Here too, Shemot is very different from Exodus. And Rashi, the great commentator, it's called Shemot because it starts out saying, Elah Shemot, these are the names of the sons of Jacob who went down to Egypt, and it lists all the names. And Rashi says, we just listed all these names at the end of Bereshit, at the end of the book of Genesis. Why are we saying it again now? And Rashi says it's to show that, they were precious when they were alive. Now, even if they've passed, their names live on as a legacy. They are still precious. They're a powerful idea around this idea of mentioning a name of someone who's no longer with us, of what it symbolizes about what they still mean to us. Beautiful, beautiful idea. I noticed in the Parsha that maybe the focus on names is important because when we see who gets named and who does not in the Parsha, it's very interesting. If you follow along, the main Jewish characters get named, of course, Moshe and Miriam. We see that Shifra and Puah, the midwives who rescue Jewish babies from Pharaoh's genocidal edict that boy babies should be thrown into the river, they get named, but other people don't get named. The Pharaoh isn't named, for instance. The taskmaster who's beating the Jew, and the Jew who then tattles on Moses later on, neither one of them is named. There's a sense that names are important, that it seems to me, there's probably a lot of interpretations of that. My interpretation is that the people who are named are the ones who are important in moving the story forward, moving the story of the Jewish people forward, and not the ones who stand in the path as a roadblock. Another important Jewish teaching on names comes from the book of Samuel, when they're talking about a character named Naval, and which means ungrateful or boorish, and in describing him, he says, "Kishmo Kenhu," like his name, so is the person. There's this idea that the names are important not only because they mention that people are precious, not only because literally they remind us who is moving the story forward, but also because they tell us something about the characters as they are moving forward. Right, there's a connection between Moses and water because he was drawn from the water, and water is a symbol of life of our people, and so he sort of gives life to the nation of the Jewish people. Miriam is sort of ironically named. She is, the bitter waters, and yet she's the one who brings fresh water, literally and figuratively, to the people as we move forward. And so there's this idea that names are important also to identify the character of a person. I would say the same is true for the character of the Jewish people. Right? Names are very important. Our new Siddur is named Mizmor Lev Shalem, which means like the full heart or the complete heart. It's a beautiful name. It can mean a lot of things to have a complete heart. To have intention in our davening. It can mean to have our whole selves involved. It can mean to have the whole Jewish people praying with one heart. But I want to posit yet another explanation. To do so, though, first we have to understand who the Jewish people are, what our names mean and say about us. So I could think of three names for the Jewish people. One are the Ivrim. We're referred to as the Eved Ivrim in Egypt, the Hebrew slaves. Ivrim is it's hard to understand exactly why we're called Ivrim, but if it comes from the word avar, which means sort of to pass, to move on, I would like to interpret it as Ivrim as the people who move forward through history, who pass through history. If it wasn't the original intention of the name, it certainly is appropriate now, as here we are thousands of years later, other peoples have come and gone, nations have come and gone, and yet the Ivrim continue to pass through history, marking time, moving towards our ultimate purpose. The second name, of course, is Yehudim, where Judaism comes from, or Jewish comes from. Yehudim comes from Yehudah. It comes from the Hebrew word hod, which means to be grateful. Right? We are the people who give gratitude. Our perspective on the world is different from anyone else because we live with gratitude from moment to moment. Whatever is going on into the world, no matter what the world seems to be like, we find something to be grateful for. And in doing so, we tease out the beauty and we tease out the meaning in life. And therefore, whatever is going on, we always can come back to that gratitude and see the goodness, and life is just a little better. And the third name, of course, we are Yisrael. Yisrael, named from Jacob's new name, which we are told when he gets it, means he who struggles with beings divine and human and succeeds. We are the ones who struggle with God, right? Judaism takes nothing for granted. We ask questions, we debate, we tease, we try to find the deeper meaning. And we believe that through that struggle, we come out closer to God, feeling more connected to that which is sacred in the world. Our faith is a struggling faith. So here are these people. Here we are, the Jewish people, the Ivrim, the Yehudim, the Yisraelim, those who move through history, finding the things to be grateful for in the world and struggling with the whole idea of what the world means and where to find God in that world. And if that's who we are, the Lev Shalem is the perfect book for us. Because the Lev Shalem, like the conservative movement in general, it takes a historical approach to the prayers and to how they've developed. It gives those explanations, and in some cases continues that development, sometimes adding language that's more inclusive, certainly of women, people who have different life experiences. Right? So we take that historical retrospective and bring it up till now so that we can bring that with us into the future, because that's what it means to be Ivrim. It means to understand the historical continuity of who we are and where we are going. And the Lev Shalem is a tool for us to do that. It helps us be the Yehudim. The prayers are beautiful and take nothing for granted when it comes to gratitude. With innovations like a special Yizkor prayer for a parent who was abusive or you didn't have a great relationship with. Even in that difficult experience of life, there's a prayer to go with it, a way to find gratitude in life, if not maybe exactly for the parent, for the experiences that allow us to go forward as better people. And there's dozens of examples of our traditional prayers and our new prayers that help us see how we can be the people of gratitude. And the people who struggle with beings divine and human, the Siddur doesn't shy away from the prayers that are difficult. And it gives us understandable commentary for that. And it gives us inspiring readings that can help us connect and maybe find a new way of thinking of a prayer that just never really worked for us before. Jewish prayer is a discipline. We take these words and we infuse them with meanings and interpretations that keep them relevant, both in our personal lives and in the world as it changes. right? The Lev Shalem brings us together in a whole heart. It combines who we are as the Ivrim, as the Yehudim, as the Yisraelim. It combines who we are as those who are moving through history, showing our gratitude even when it's hard, and struggling with what it means to be a good person, a religious person, to have a relationship with God and to have a relationship with a people. That's the Lev Shalem that this Siddur gives us. As a movement, as individuals, as a people, the Lev Shalem is a tool that helps us be who we are meant to be, that helps us live up to our names. We're so excited at Congregation Bethel now to have our Siddur Lev Shalem. Even this first time we used it, you can feel the difference in our tefillah, in our prayer. As people use the transliteration and the translation and the commentary and the inspiring readings to be more together, to feel that sense of prayer as a community. I only hope that we can, each as individuals and together as a community, find other ways besides this beautiful tool to live up to who we are supposed to be, to recognize that we are the ones who pass through history, that we are the ones who are grateful, that we are the ones who are not afraid to struggle with God, to struggle with humanity, and that we all find as good tools in our lives to move forward, to be all those things in a positive way, as our movement has given us in the Siddur Lev Shalem. So what's in a name? Pretty much everything. And I hope we can live up to ours. Shabbat Shalom.